Jim Ratcliffe has given a pretty fascinating interview with Geraint Thomas on his cycling podcast, an hour-long chat. What I'm going to do in this video is run through the key clips from that, where Jim Ratcliffe speaks about the transfer policy that's going to exist at Manchester United under INEOS, how he wants to sign the next Mbappe, not Mbappe, and plenty more detail on Old Trafford and the overall vision of where he sees football going as a fan experience. It's going to give you a lot more insight into the plans of INEOS for Manchester United. Let's dive straight into it, and let's begin with the transfer side of things, where Jim Ratcliffe gave a little bit more detail, as I said, as to how he wants Man United to operate in the transfer market.
United sign Mbappe or INEOS sign Pogacar?
What I would rather do, I'd rather find the next Mbappe rather than spend a fortune just trying to buy success. It's not that clever, is it, buying Mbappe in a way? And anyone could figure that one out. But what's much more challenging is to find the next Mbappe or the next Bellingham or the next Roy Keane.
I cannot agree with that anymore. All right, Manchester United. You know what? It's kind of horrible when you do this, but look at this list, right? Of our sign, we tried under Ed Woodward to adopt a Galactico style model, and it didn't work. Paul Pogba didn't work. Anthony hasn't worked. I don't think it will work. Maguire, I think for the price we expected a Van Dijk signing, I don't think the price reflected the player that we got. Sancho didn't work out. Lukaku didn't work out. Di Maria didn't work out. Casemiro worked out for a season. Fernandes was a success. Fernandes is the only one inside that top 10 that I would say confidently was a big success. There's others you can have arguments about, but that's how poor we've been at trying to find that. At trying to sign superstars. And my favourite types of signings as a United fan have been those players who have come in with talent, who have turned into superstars at our club. And that's also from a financial perspective. And unfortunately, this is going to drive a lot of our decision-making, really, is the price of things. We can't be going out and spending 150 million on Mbappe or 130 million on Bellingham or whatever. Man United have to be smarter in the market. And that is why I absolutely agree with what he said there. And a little bit more detail here when he was asked about Bellingham.
Who was first on your hit list then? Jude Bellingham. He'd be good, wouldn't he?
Oh yeah, no, he's a great footballer. But I mean,
no chance so now, is there really? But
well, I think it's not where our focus is. The solution isn't spending a lot of money on a couple of great players. That's not going to. I mean, they've done that. If you look at the last 10 years, they have spent a lot of money on a couple of great players. So the first thing we need to do is get the right people in the right boxes who are managing and organising the club, and make sure that we get recruitment right. It's such a vital part of running a football club today, is getting recruitment right.
That bit there is proper music to my ears, because I've been saying for a while, I said, if Manchester United have got a budget of 150 million this summer, I'd rather we sign 5 players for 30 million than 3 players for 50 million, hypothetically. That's exactly what he's saying there is going to be the policy of United. All right? There have been players that we've missed out on. Bellingham and Haaland are 2. Haaland we absolutely could have got. Bellingham, I think we kind of tried everything to get him, but we couldn't give him the promised amount of first team minutes. Hence why he didn't join Manchester United. But just to hear the owner speaking so openly about a policy shift, and it's a policy shift we need at this football club. It's a policy shift that I would be excited about. And I think you would be excited about too. Because if we do move away from that failed Galactico model, all right, when you sign these level of players, it annoys me, but Liverpool and City have got this right. And I look at what Liverpool did they signed plenty of players, but when they needed those finishing pieces, Alisson and Van Dijk, they went out and they spent big like that. But you can sign lots of players, 30, 40, 50 million, who can bring the floor technical quality of your squad up to the point where those big signings can be made. Those signings that complete a team, not a signing that you do in an earlier stage of the rebuild. This is what United have done and failed at so many bloody times. And it's absolutely the right thing to do. It's absolutely the right policy to have. And it's good to hear from Jim Ratcliffe himself that is how he sees the direction of United going. Now, of course, he won't be leading these conversations or this policy. That will be our head of recruitment that works under Dan Ashworth and Omar Barada. But just to hear it from the man at the very top, that's the shift in direction that United are going in. And it's really good to hear about that. And also what I want to run through now is some more detail and conversation around what Jim Ratcliffe wants to do with Old Trafford. This is a really interesting conversation. And it kind of has a little bit more detail on the overall vision, right?
He needs to have a stadium that's befitting, the club and the brand. And that might have been the case 20 years ago, but it isn't today. I mean, we can refurbish the ground and we'll do a really nice job of that. It'll be a fantastic stadium. And that would cost about $1 billion to do that. And that the club can shoulder that burden. But
first interesting point there is that's the first, I think, time that we've heard Jim Ratcliffe speak about an actual price, $1 billion for a refurb of Old Trafford. Also saying there that the club can shoulder the burden. That doesn't necessarily mean that, Manchester United are going to be paying $1 billion for the stadium. It's going to be debt leveraged onto the club. I have no idea how this is going to be financed. We need finance. Jim Ratcliffe's not going to randomly find $1 billion. He could just put $1 billion in, but that's not how rich people spend money. They borrow money and they use it in all this way. No. I have no idea how the financing of this stadium is going to be done. But that's the first time we've heard $1 billion being put on it.
You have got this opportunity if you choose to build a completely new ground, because we've got enough space to build a completely new ground. And then you could, if you built a completely new ground, it would absolutely be state of the art, world class, 90,000 or maybe even 100,000.
Again, that's the number I want. If we're looking at a new stadium, I want it to be 100,000. Personal opinion, right? And I asked it in the live show this morning, like, how big do you think Old Trafford could be after a refurb? If we spend $1 billion on it, how big is it going to be? It has to be north of 90,000 for it to be worth the upheaval. Again, my opinion might disagree with that.
And that then provides a platform for some of the big competitions in the north of England. Football is just as important in the north as it is in the south, arguably more so, and the people in the north pay their taxes. So why do we have Wembley in the south? Why do we have Twickenham in the south? Why do we have Wimbledon in the south? Why do we have the Olympic Village in the south?
By the way, this is clearly quite an important part of all of this project for Jim Ratcliffe. It's not just about what the right thing is for Old Trafford. He feels very strongly about the fact that the North needs better representation with a sporting venue compared to what exists in the South. I think that's come across so many times. Now with Old Trafford, man, I'm still so split. A big part of me thinks that he's mentioned it as an opportunity there, and it is an opportunity. This is I wouldn't say it's a once in a lifetime thing that United are going to be doing with this new stadium. Well, with Old Trafford, whether it's refurb or new stadium, because if we decide to refurb further down the line, we could in theory still build a new stadium further down the line. But if somebody spends $1 billion on refurbing Old Trafford now, that seems unlikely in the next couple of generations. And this part here, I think, is probably the most telling as to what's drawing Jim Ratcliffe towards the concept of a new stadium, not just for what it could bring to the club, but his focus here in this clip on how he sees the future of football going from a fan experience perspective.
And run down where. And the other thing is, I think the future of football is not going to be you just go to the football match and then you leave and you go home. Or, where we are today at Old Trafford is quite a few people leave early because the transportation system can't cope with the rush when you leave, So it's just to go there, then leave, because there's nothing else to do in and around Old Trafford. And the future, which they do recognise, at the Bernabeu and Nou Camp, is that it's more of, you provide more entertainment. It's more of a campus, so you can go and have a bite to eat. You can watch something on the screens. You can do a bit of shopping. There's a museum, all those types of things, So then you keep the fans there for a longer period of time. You don't have the same transportation issues because it's not such a peak issue. And also, if you one of the new issues in football is this thing called FFP, financial fair play, where you have to live within your means. So the more means you've got, the better you can live in a way. So
I think this is, as I said, I find this quite telling. And again, I'm pulling up the City stadium expansion plans. What Jim Ratcliffe is effectively saying there is, if fans see, I said this on the last show this morning, right? When you go to Old Trafford now, you go to Old Trafford. No one goes to the museum on match day. Sometimes people go into the megastore if they're visiting. That's pretty much what you do. But the average fan, you just go to Old Trafford for the game, right? what if there was a Manchester United world, right? That's what this weird idea I've got in my head. Of like this, when you go down to Matt Busby Way, you see the stadium there, but then you've also got some sort of shopping complex over here, some sort of restaurant there, some decent bars, some decent pubs, a place where a fan could go and in theory spend a couple of hours before the game. And if Manchester United own all of that, and that money could therefore be funneled back into the club, and therefore it could go against the bottom line and affect FFP and affect how you spend money, that's what Jim Ratcliffe is speaking about here. Now, if the Glazers were doing that, it would be just like you'd flip the bird at them and say, no, you're just trying to rinse money. You're just trying to make more money out of fans, which in theory they are. But if that then leads to Manchester United signing more players and Manchester United showing ambition, is that something that fans would be happy with? Is that something you would be happy with? You can let me know what you're thinking in the comments about that. Now, there's a couple more little snippets here that I want to speak about from Jim Ratcliffe. And this one here, he was asked, he goes, what player would you bring back?
Player in their prime into the team now? So like a Keane. I'd choose Keane. He's just
you mean into that Manchester United team today?
Team today, yeah.
I think Paul Scholes, I'd bring in. Yeah, because I think that's the...
Paul Scholes, that's the player he'd bring back. He was speaking about how you've got Kobbie Mainoo and you've got Casemiro, who he's saying that Kobbie Mainoo is more defensive. I think right now he is, but I don't think overall he will be. But you know, the player, I hate using City as an example, just because I've been thinking about them, sort of like in part of this video. But the type of player that I would love to see brought into midfield is a Yaya Toure style of a player. I think that's the player that we're missing in midfield. You never know what you think in the comments below. But I think just hearing Jim Ratcliffe speak so openly and honestly, that doesn't really have much to hide. He sees the vision of Old Trafford being different than just refurbing the stadium and improving how many seats there are. The bottom line of Manchester United's financials are crap. Maybe a new stadium, fans spending more, but then Manchester United spending more as a consequence is something that he wants to do. He wants to change the transfer policy of Manchester United to move away from just spending big on players and to actually finding players and signing them and watching them turn into stars at the club. That is something we can all agree with. The Old Trafford stuff and anything to do with Old Trafford is going to be something I think we're debating about for quite a long time. Now, you can let me know what you think in the comments below about everything that Jim Ratcliffe said. Do you agree with the transfer policy? Do you agree with the overall vision of what Old Trafford could be or the whole surrounding area? Let me know. If you can, drop a like on the video if you're still here.